Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special edition of Jackson and Austin. We're doing something a little different tonight. Our regularly scheduled program will be back tomorrow night to complete our Bowl Mania / NY6 recap. But there was some breaking news that occurred earlier today, and that was the legendary and Hall of Fame coach Nick Saban retires from college football at the age of 72. And man, I'm sure it's hit a lot of people hard in this past couple hours. And me and Jackson are here to reminisce and break down what is Nick Saban's legacy in this sport, what's some of our favorite moments and games, and what does this mean for Alabama going forward and potential head coaching candidates. But I could not do this without the Bama man himself, the man who's seen the greatness all up front from all his years. Jackson, how are you handling this news, and how are you, my friend? Because you've got to see greatness right before your very eyes.
I mean, I knew this day was coming. I just didn't think it would be this quick. And I'll be honest, when I saw this news, I felt like I was hit by a truck.
Yeah, Jackson, be honest with you, I kind of was too. I kind of figured the day was coming, but I figured Nick Saban would want a storybook ending like Peyton Manning got in his Super Bowl. But as the old saying goes, Jackson, you can't end every story on top. And maybe Nick
True.
Saban thought that this was it. This is as good as it's going to get for him.
Well, we got this news from Chris Lowe, when he was the first one to come out with it. And, it says on this tweet that he says that it also shouldn't surprise anybody that Saban was working and interviewing potential assistants an hour before he told the team he was retiring. He told me last month, I'll know when it's time, but I won't scale back. I only know one way to do it. I can't do it any other way. That kind of sounds
Mm-hmm.
like Coach Saban right there, man. I mean, he's like, do things my way. And he also said that 14-hour days are a lot harder at 72 than they were at 62. When you want to make sure you're on top of everything, which is more difficult than ever now as a head coach with everything you have to manage.
Yes. And Jackson, now with NIL coming into play, makes it even harder because Jackson, the good old days was Nick Saban could just walk into a recruit's home and be like, I'm Coach Nick Saban. If you want to become a champion, come play for me at Alabama. You see my track record. Come up and play here at Alabama. I'll make sure you get selected in the first round. Now Jackson, he could do that still, but then there could be another head coach coming in and offering the kid $20 million to come play at Ole Miss or Texas A&M. So
Or
it's kind of one of
Texas
those
and
things that,
Georgia.
yeah. And it's just like one of those things that Nick Saban might not want to deal with anymore. Maybe the time has passed him by. And like, don't get me wrong, Jackson. Jackson, it happens to all of us. Times pass us by.
Oh,
But Nick Saban was the last old school head coach. He did everything the right way. Defense, defense, defense. Now it's all offense, offense, offense.
true. That is very
It,
true. I mean, we're in an offensive generation. When people look at a defensive game, they kind of think, I don't like this game. Me personally, I'm not going to complain whether if it's a great game offensively or if it's a great game defensively. You won't hear any complaints out of me. I'm happy with either or.
well, Jackson, like the Super Bowl a couple years ago, the 13-3. I enjoyed that game. I thought that was fun. But a lot of people said that's the worst Super Bowl we've ever seen. Who? I wish the Patriots and Rams wouldn't have made the Super Bowl. This was terrible. I'm like, why are you complaining? It's the Super Bowl. What do you expect? The defenses want to win. Eh, Like Jackson, they got so spoiled now that if it's not 45-40, it's a terrible game. And Nick Saban,
Yeah.
he built his legacy on defensive games. I mean, heck, Jackson, he had a couple not that long ago. I mean, this year he had a couple rough patches. Gave up 28 to LSU. Tennessee gave up 20, but he's been in the trenches in his earlier days, which we'll get
Yeah.
to. But it's just very interesting. I mean, we're talking about this, Jackson, but it's just one of those things. It's very sad. It's almost the end of an era because
Yeah.
now Alabama, they'll still be the brand team, but it's like Nick Saban's not on that other side. Like when you watch Alabama next year, it's going to be like, where's Nick Saban? Where's he at over there yelling? It'll be
Mhm.
like, how are you going to feel about that, Jackson? Watching Bama
Well,
next
for
year and not
me,
seeing Coach Saban go nuts.
I'll be honest, it's surreal, it's like not seeing Duke basketball without Mike Krzyzewski. It's like thinking of the Packers without Vince Lombardi after 1967. It's like Jeopardy without Alex Trebek or The Price is Right without Bob Barker. I mean, I know I used a couple of non-sports figures, but it's just to let you know when you have an iconic legend, working someplace, you can't think of anybody else, honestly. Especially with Alabama, there was a time where everybody used to think of Bear Bryant when thinking of Alabama football, but then when Bear Bryant wasn't there, it's like, well, where is the Bear? Where is he?
And
That
Jackson,
same
I
thing with
know.
Coach.
Oh, go ahead. Didn't mean to cut you off.
That's all right. And, also with UCLA basketball after 1974-75 without John Wooden, for the longest time, people were like, oh, yeah, John Wooden, he's that legendary basketball coach at UCLA. Yeah, that's what a lot of people are going to say, with Alabama. They're like, where's Coach Saban?
hmm And in Jackson, I know a lot of people rag on him, but Bill Belichick, when he retires or he leaves New England, we're gonna be looking over there and be thinking, "Where's Bill Belichick? Where's his menacing stare at?" Like as much as people want to give him crap, I mean Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, arguably two of the greatest head coaches, not only of their respective sport of the NFL and college, but maybe in the history of football altogether. And
Yeah.
it's just one of those things, Jackson. We'll talk about what his legacy will be at the end, but it's just like, man, we were blessed, Jackson. We got to see Nick Saban at the height of his career, and we got to see him towards the end.
Well, and to your point where he talked about Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, they used to work together at the original Cleveland Browns before it turned into the Baltimore Ravens from 1991 to 1994. I got to tell you, that was a pretty big era back then. 90s were all that. Good grief.
Yes, it was, Jackson. And I know this might be a little bit sad, it's sappy, but Jackson, let's remember some of the good things about Nick Saban. And let's
Oh, yeah.
remember let's talk about what this man has achieved and what he will leave behind. And let's start with some accomplishments. One of the most
Oh,
decorated coaches in history. Seven
this is
national championships.
oh, yeah.
Oh, go
You
ahead.
know, this is the most in all of college football. No other coach has 7 national championships. Only Nick Saban. I mean, that national championship from, 6 of them, as you can see, from 09, 2020, they're from Alabama. The other one was 2003 at LSU. I got to say, that is a tremendous record right there. And I mean,
hmm
how about the moments that led up to 2009? I mean, that was pretty big right there.
hmm And Jackson, one of the most decorated coaches in history. I don't think there's an argument against that. I mean, Jackson, we're not even counting how many SEC championships he's won, Coach of the Year awards. And Jackson, but beyond all that, look how many first round draft picks he's produced, how many Heisman winners, how many NFL MVPs, all this talent he's producing. Not only is this man producing 7 national titles, SEC titles, but he's producing all this talent, all this great rosters, and it's just like Nick Saban truly is a once in a lifetime head coach, Jackson. I mean, we could go down the list real fast. Derrick Henry with your Tennessee Titans, Devontae Smith with the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts with the Philadelphia Eagles, Bryce Young with the Carolina Panthers, Jerry Jeudy with the Denver Broncos, just to name a few. Bama's just got so much history. Bama could arguably be the greatest sports team in history if they really want to make that argument. And Nick Saban is a big reason why. But go ahead, though, Jackson. I'm sure you would love to elaborate a little bit more on this.
Oh man, I mean, there are plenty of great games, because it was like, that was pretty big. People forget about 2001, Nick Saban's second year at LSU, where he was winning the SEC title out of the blue and basically spoiled Tennessee's national title hopes. And when you look back at that game, it was a rematch from the regular season where Philip Farmer and Tennessee beat LSU 26-18. I mean, that was a pretty big victory for Tennessee at that time. For the longest time in 01, when you thought of the SEC, kind of like how we talk about like Alabama and Georgia, Tennessee and Florida were those teams that basically ruled the roost in that conference. So that was pretty big right there. And, the fact LSU won the SEC that year was literally the beginning of a new era. Little did we know at that time that Nick Saban was going to be that legendary head coach right then and there afterwards.
And Jackson, I'm glad you brought up games because, as part of paying tribute to Nick Saban in this video, let's talk about some of our favorite moments or games. Just one or two that come to mind. And I'll start this off. My number one favorite moment of Nick Saban / game is I always think of the 2017 national championship game against Georgia when Jalen Hurts was struggling and he pulled him out and people were like, "You're crazy, Nick Saban. Why are you doing that? Jalen Hurts got you here." And then Tua comes in and wins a natty. And then Nick Saban was like, "I know what I'm doing, guys." That'll always stick out in my memory bank right there. But Jackson, I'm sure you got an even better one. What's your number one moment or game for that fact of Nick Saban?
Oh, dude, I have a Christmas list of them. I mean, I could go on until both of us grow beards, where we have like long beards for me going over my favorite list of Saban moments. I mean, the 1998 Michigan State Ohio State game, where Michigan State played spoiler to Ohio State's national championships hopes. That was pretty big right there. And the Bluegrass Miracle from 2002, where LSU beats Kentucky in that match. And, Kentucky was celebrating a little too early. They were like they were pouring Gatorade on their head coach, I think 8 seconds before the game ended. So they kind of threw count their chickens for their hatched. I mean, that was just not smart. Nick Saban basically showed them, don't be doing that around here. And, the 2008 season, oh my God, the blackout for a knockout against Georgia when, Alabama just smacked them. I mean, at one point they were leading 31-0 going into halftime, but then they beat the Bulldogs 41-30. In 2009, that was a great year right there. The Chick-fil-A kickoff against Virginia Tech. That was a fantastic moment right there. And it was literally the beginning of a legendary season for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And then when we got revenge against the Florida Gators in the SEC title game, that was a big game right there. Big
Yeah,
one right there.
And Jackson, I got another one that always sticks out, and this is one that I know where me and you talk about this a lot, but the most famous thing after Alabama won their national titles, they grew in popularity and hatred, and every team would always say, "We want Bama, we want Bama," and Nick Saban. He never said a word about it or nothing. But every time any team ever did that and they were on that schedule, they always went out there and kicked their butt. 2017 Vanderbilt.
Oh, man, that game against Vanderbilt from 2017. That's one of my favorite ones right there. Cause like I forget the guy's name, but he was running his mouth on the post game after they upset Kansas State. They're like, "You're coming to our house now. We're gonna beat you, Bama. We're gonna beat you." But then guess what? It's on CBS, and Alabama shuts them out 59-0. So I'm gonna miss moments like that. And now everybody's gonna say, "We want Georgia. We want Georgia."
And Jackson, and here's the thing. Jackson, here's the thing too. Nick Saban didn't even have to say nothing. You could just tell he was like, "You done made this personal with him." And that's one thing when you played Alabama and you started that crap, Nick Saban's like, "You're gonna start it, but we're gonna finish it." It's like if you show Alabama the proper respect, that they go easy on you, so to speak. But if you start that "We want Bama," Nick Saban's gonna have his guys fired up at you, especially if LSU or a Tennessee or a Florida start that. Nick Saban's gonna be like, "Okay, Tennessee, you beat us once in 15 years. You really want to start that?"
Yeah. Oh, that 09 Alabama Tennessee game. I'm glad you mentioned Tennessee. That was a great one where like Terrence Mount Cody, not once but twice, blocks the field goal. That second, he blocks it with his armpit. Like that was like one of my favorite plays. And he was just running and celebrating at the end of the game. I was like, man, I wish we could have gotten Lane Kiffin at Tennessee in 2010 because that would have been legendary. I mean, like how Alabama Ole Miss pretty awesome in the last few years or so. Well, Alabama Tennessee would have been awesome if Lane Kiffin had stayed Tennessee. But that 09 game, that was a great moment. And 2023, the Isaiah Bond touchdown, a 4th and 31. That was pretty awesome.
Now, Jackson, I got one thing that I think we cannot be remiss if we don't talk about this before we move on. Is the trilogy of games between Clemson and Alabama. I don't think I would be overstepping it saying this was the best 4-game series we ever got in a trilogy. The touchdown return by Bama, Deshaun Watson to Hunter Renfrow, the Clemson beatdown. I mean, and those are what made Alabama special right there. Is because Clemson was the darling, the baby face, like, beat Bama for us, please, please. And then Nick Saban snatched it from their heart in 2015. It was just. That was one of the best trilogies I think I've ever seen in my life. Especially 2016, Deshaun Watson to Hunter Renfrow. Because if Deshaun threw that ball late, it might have been picked off. Might have. Because Bama.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, though, Jackson. I'm sure you got another one.
Well, I got one more game I'd like to mention. 2007 against Tennessee. Because I know everybody talks about that onside kick in the 2016 national championship against Clemson, but I don't ever hear any mention of that first play of the 2007 Alabama-Tennessee game where Bama was calling for an onside kick, and then Bama recovered it. Little did anybody know that it was the start of a domination against Tennessee at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And these were just this is just the tip of the iceberg. Guys, I mean, me and Jackson could be here all night with these. But that was some of our top highlights of Coach Saban and Alabama in some of his games and moments. But Jackson, we've had our fun, but now we kind of have to get a little serious down in this part of the proportion of the episode and talk about what does this mean for Alabama, because Nick Saban and Alabama are like peanut butter and jelly, like ice cream in a cone. It's like one without the other. It's like mayonnaise on a bologna sandwich or mustard, whatever you prefer. You get where I'm going. Nick Saban without Alabama.
They go together like Rick and Morty. Man, that's another one right there.
Scooby-Doo and Shaggy. You get where we're going. They're a perfect match for one another. But, this is interesting because Jackson, Alabama, they're a team that has had all this success with Coach Saban, and we've all seen it, especially you being so close to it, Jackson, and a fan of this team. And now they're searching for a new head coach. Got a lot of possible potential coaches out there. But, Jackson, just talk about what this means for Alabama in general, because beyond the coaching, because, Jackson, what happens if the next head coach goes 9-3? All we're going to hear is, oh, Nick Saban wouldn't have gone 9-3. Oh, Nick Saban would have beaten LSU. Go ahead. I'm sure you will elaborate some more.
If it's like 9-3 every season, I understand getting pissy over that. But 9-3 in year one or year two, I'm not going to get mad over that. But I know a lot of Bama Nation is not going to be too thrilled when seeing that. They're going to think to themselves, oh, well, that's not what Coach Saban would have done. That's not, it's like those people in the small town, that get mad at you and go, your father wouldn't have done that. Your mother wouldn't have done that. They always do that. The people that knew your parents in small town, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like that with Alabama. And, for the longest while, a lot of Bama Nation was like, well, that's not what Bear Bryant would have done. Bear Bryant would have done this. Bear Bryant would have done that. But all I could do is just say, don't always be looking for that next Saban assistant, because that's what hurt you when Bear Bryant retired. You kept looking for that next Bear Bryant assistant, because you can't do that. Can't be doing that. And whoever you hire, you have to let them run the team their way. And when you do that, you're going to be winning for a very long time.
And Jackson, I understand Nick Saban's got Alabama at a standard where you're going to the playoffs every year and winning national championships. But let's just say, for instance, the next head coach goes 10-2 and gets an NY6 bid to one of the two NY6s that will not be a part of the 12-team playoff. It's like, is that really a failure of the season? 10-2, an NY6 bid still? I understand you're Bama and you hold a legacy, but let's be honest here. There's a lot of teams, Jackson, that would love to go 10-2 every year and go NY6. It's just like, okay, be like, okay, Bama Nation, calm down. It's okay. Like, you're gonna be fine. And it's like Jackson, like, they need to have some patience. Like, they need to have patience like you, good buddy. Like, understand that this is going to take some time to rebuild. Like, Bama's going to get talent, all that good stuff, but they're going to have to install their system. Which brings up my next question, Jackson. Who would you like to see as the next head coach? Because I've seen names like Deion Sanders, Dan Lanning, Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, Kalen DeBoer. Heck, I've even seen a couple people throw out there There may be Bruce Arians.
No. Bruce Arians wants to go watch Andy Griffith's show on MeTV.
Yeah, I don't
He's
think he wants
old.
to come to Alabama. He's too old for that now. But yeah,
And, yeah, and
Jackson, who would
plus
you like to see as the next?
he'll always
Oh,
have
go ahead.
the distinction of being the last Bear Bryant assistant coach that was currently coaching.
But Jackson, as an Alabama fan that you are, who would you like to see as the next head coach? Is there anybody in mind off the bat, or you just kind of maybe hire within? What's your feeling on that right now?
I mean, I know a lot of people right now are saying Dan Lanning's going to be there at Alabama. He should be. I mean, I like the idea of Dan Lanning, but what about Kalen DeBoer from Washington? I like that idea because, I mean, Kalen DeBoer has won his whole life. And while we're at it, he could bring Ryan Grubb with him as well. That would be pretty big. I mean, I've seen what he's done at Washington, what he's done at Fresno State and at Sioux Falls. He's been a consistent winner his whole career. Come on over to Bama. Don't be a discount dog at the Big Ten. Come on down to Tuscaloosa, man.
Jackson, what do you think about this name, Dabo Sweeney? Do you think there's any chance he makes that kind of move, or would that be a lateral move in your opinion?
I like the idea of it, but one problem is he doesn't want to adjust to the transfer portal. He has quite a problem with it. I mean, I get it. It's not what you're used to. You want to go back to the good old days, but we're not in the good old days anymore. We're in the nowadays. You either adjust to the nowadays or you can't. And if you can't, you probably need to either retire or just kind of find something else to do.
Or go see what's in the NFL for you, because Dabo can do
Yeah.
NFL, but like
Oh, yeah.
Jackson, and I've heard a lot of those names too. But whoever replaces Saban, Jackson, they're gonna have big shoes to fill. That's all I could say. And here's what I have a question: is Jackson, how many people you think might enter the transfer portal now that he's gone? Do you think there's going to be a big overhaul, or do you think they're still going to stick it out even without Saban?
Well, I've heard rumors that Isaiah Bond could be transferring. I mean, we don't know yet, but I know that the transfer portal is open for another 30 days with the Saban retirement. So, we'll be watching, see who stays and who goes. But it's just very interesting to see what happens. But I know who
Yeah.
else is going to be. I know who else in the SEC is pretty happy to see Saban retiring.
Who's that, Jackson? That could be multiple teams. Take your pick.
Oh, yeah. Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, if they keep Lane Kiffin, Auburn is definitely happy with it. I mean, they're going to have an easier time beating Alabama now with Hugh Freeze. I mean, he can get the job done. That I do believe. Oklahoma with Brent Venables, I believe is going to be extremely happy. Missouri, I mean, we're going to wait and see if 2024 can be another 2023 for them. Mike Elko and A&M is definitely happy. Sam Pittman in Arkansas are definitely happy with the news. So, I mean, there's a Christmas list of teams. I mean, take your pick, like you said.
Yeah, most certainly, Jackson. Most certainly. And it's just one of those things to put a bow tie on this is Alabama is just gonna move on with life without Saban. And the thing is, Jackson, too, is a lot of Bama fans that have been around have seen the bad days of Bama. And some of them have only been here for the Saban era. how are they going to react when Bama goes 8-4, 9-3 again if it ever gets that bad? I'm not saying it will, but if it does, are they going to stick around? Like Jackson, I know you as a true Alabama fan, not one of the bandwagoners, you're going to stick around with them no matter what, even
Oh
if they
yeah.
do lose to LSU every year. You won't like it because then we'll hear Brian Kelly's the greatest head coach of all time. We'll have to hear that again, but
Yep,
you
I
get my
forgot to
point.
mention LSU. I forgot to mention LSU and Tennessee as the other teams that are happy about this news. I can't believe I forgot about them.
Well, Jackson, it's easy to forget about them when you beat them so much. I mean, they become an afterthought. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, oh, but all kidding aside, though, there's definitely going to be some major changes for Alabama in 2024. And, Alabama, life's going to move on, though. Everybody, as they say, is expendable, so to speak. Like the Carolina Panthers did with Frank Wright. I know that's a bad example, but they didn't even give him a chance. And
No.
the Panthers, I'm sure, will do just fine. And I'm
Oh
sure
yeah.
Nick Saban, I'm sure he will still be always a part of Alabama. I'm sure he may even come watch some of the games and be like, I would
I
have
just
done this or I would have.
wonder, and I asked Mark earlier, it's like, I wonder if we'll see like another Nick Saban Thursday on the Pat McAfee show, or if we'll see like Nick Saban on the Joe Rogan experience, where he's just kind of like, oh, well, this is what it was like coaching in college football, back 10, 15 years ago. And then like Joe Rogan's like, oh man, that's cool, man. Like, that is a great job that you did. Hey, Jamie, can you pull that link up? Jamie. Jamie, pull that link up. Like, oh man, that would be so
Yeah, that's.
cool. Because he's not gonna want to be sitting around at home watching, Gunsmoke and Bonanza on Me TV. I mean, don't get me wrong, watching Me TV is awesome, but you don't want to be at home all the time. That's gonna suck. So I mean, I guess he'll either start a podcast or he'll start, working at ESPN for a little bit. We don't know what he'll do. Maybe he'll be on the Pat McAfee show every Thursday during the football season. Who knows? But it's going to be interesting to see what happens next.
Mm-hmm. It 100% will be, Jackson. And what a fitting way to end this video and end this night, Jackson. And the biggest question of them all: what will Nick Saban's legacy be? What will he be remembered as when it's all said and done and the history books are written about Nick Saban? What will it say? Jackson, I'll let you go first on this. What will Nick Saban's legacy be? When that chapter closes, what's the book going to say?
It's going to say that he was one of the greatest coaches of all time in all of college football and pretty much in the sports world as well.
Yeah, Jackson, I totally agree. I mean, Nick Saban, for my money, his legacy is going to be he's the greatest that ever lived, and that there's maybe only one or two other coaches you can make an argument. Heck, Jackson, I'm going to say this right now. I think he's the greatest head coach in college football history. Now, in football history, you've got a couple that may challenge him. But as for college football, he's the greatest ever. I know Bear Bryant's there for a lot of people. You can maybe throw Dabo in that conversation. I know a lot of people want to throw Jim Harbaugh in there. Let's be honest. Nick Saban's
Tom Osborne, Bobby Bowden, Frank Broyles, Darrell Royal, Woody Hayes, Bo Schembechler. I mean, there's a Christmas list of greatest coaches of all time. Oh, did I forget to mention Bud Wilkinson and Wallace Wade? Like, good grief, I forgot about Wallace Wade for a moment.
But Jackson, to me, his legacy is going to be that he's the standard. Whenever you talk about the GOAT of head coaching, you better start with Nick Saban first. And for more great content here at Sports Talk for more great content here at Sports Talk with Austin, please make sure you like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell so you never miss another video on anything college football, college basketball, and the NBA. Hey, here at Sports Talk with Austin, it's Cardinals for life, baby. I'm out. Stay in.